It is, that's correct. Today is 23 November 2025. It's Sunday. I'm Charlie Garrett, and this is the CG Prophecy Report. Porkers in Gaza. That and a lot of other things to go over on today's report. Okay, a couple things to announce. Within the past 30 minutes, I had a grandson. He's named Emmett, which everybody in our family keeps getting stuck with E names. Now, my real name, and most people know this, is not Charlie, okay? My name begins with an E. And there's a reason why I'm Charlie is because my older two brothers begin with E. And my grandmother, the day I was born, said, I will never call him that. And so she said, his name is Charlie, and I've been Charlie ever since. The only time I use the E is on something that's official. I actually said this during a prophecy update one time. I said, my name isn't really Charlie. And somebody sent me the nastiest email. Well, you're a pastor and you're hiding. That's disgusting. I'm like, if you'd been nice, I would have told you the story, but you're a loser and goodbye. So what's the matter with people? All you have to do is say, why would you not use, but being a nasty person like that. So I've always remembered that is when you address people, you just start out nicely and then get nasty, but don't just start out like some type of a, anyway, my name is Charlie. It's always been Charlie since the day I was born. I just have an official E name. I don't know. Did I say his name already? It's Emmett. Okay. And he's got the typical Filipino nose, which is all stubbed in, like my daughter. And so he's going to look just like her, just like my granddaughter is. And she is as cute as a button. So I hope I don't have a grandson that's cute as a button. But whatever. Anyway, yeah, well, he'll be cute for a while, but he needs to grow up into the He-Man. Let's see here. Okay, we got some news from Israel. Now, before I give my Israel news, because this bears on Israel, I had a lady write me, Kendra, and her husband, Tony, sent me something. And it's because they were at a conference, a tech conference. And lo and behold, there was a company there, Quantum Mechanics. And I've mentioned them in a prophecy update. They're from Tel Aviv. They were in, I think it was Washington, D.C. that she said. But she said, we thought of you. And so we got you one of the Quantum Mechanics little gifts that they hand out to people, right, for a company. And she assumes that I may wear these someday. She's probably wrong because they're socks. Now, I may wear them at night to keep my feet warm, but that is about the extent of my shoe wearing. I go barefoot everywhere I am, including right now. So I so much appreciate that. Gave me the biggest tickle of my life is getting a pair of socks. There you go. Okay, so news from Israel, from World Israel News. Pentagon picks Israeli startup to build AI one-way attack drones in the U.S. in November. So this is an Israeli startup is getting our military contracts. Israelis Extend, X-T-E-N-D, has won a defense contract to develop and deliver AI-enabled one-way attack drone kits tailored for tight urban fights. Another clear vote of confidence in Israeli defense technology honed against terrorist threats. The deal, awarded through the Pentagon Special Operations Low Intensity Conflict Directorate, covers development, training, spares, and stateside production. The program, formerly dubbed the Affordable Close Quarter Modular Effects Drone Kit, focuses on low-cost, precision loitering munitions that can breach, hunt, and strike inside buildings and other confined spaces. Extend says the kits combine an electronic, safe, and armed device, hardened dual link control, fiber optic plus RF to ride out heavy jamming, and operator-friendly autonomy that keeps cognitive load low while boasting survivability and accuracy at the tactical edge. Crucially for Washington's drive to onshore drone supply chains, Extend will build and support the systems from its new headquarters and manufacturing hub in Tampa, Florida. Yes! Open this summer to serve U.S. Special Operations customers and scale domestic output. Maybe we could schedule a field trip for the church to go on up there and see what they do. Local authorities and trade press say the site aims to create dozens of high-tech jobs and produce thousands of systems per year as orders ramp. The company has been building U.S. ties for years. Now, it's a startup, and yet it's been building ties for years. I'm not sure how that happens, but anyway, in 2022, it secured a Pentagon order for hundreds of Wolverine Generation 2 systems under a joint U.S.-Israel irregular warfare program, part of a broader shift to affordable software-defined autonomy at squad level. The new ACQMEDK contract extends that trajectory. One operator coordinating swarms of specialized drones, breachers, scouts, and strikers without sacrificing positive human control over lethal actions. So fun stuff from the military side of things. From Fox, New York City lawmaker dares. Now, a week ago or 2 weeks ago, I said Mondami said that if Netanyahu comes to New York, he's going to arrest him, right? Yeah, right. A Republican. Oh, she dares Mondami to make good on his pipe dream pledge by inviting Netanyahu. Go ahead, invite him. And I guarantee you the guy would come. A Republican New York City councilwoman is putting one of Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani's campaign promises to the test by inviting Prime Minister Netanyahu to the city on January 1st. So she is inviting him. Now, he may not come for that reason, but if he's in America and somebody invites him, I bet he'd go there. In an apparent challenge to Mamdani's call to have the Jewish leader arrested. Inna Vernikov, who represents the city's 48th district, which encompasses a heavy Jewish population in southern Brooklyn, posted a letter inviting Netanyahu to New York City on the day Mamdani takes office. The ICC, which the U.S. does not recognize, issued an arrest warrant in 2024 for Netanyahu over alleged war crimes in Gaza. On the campaign trail, Mamdani had suggested he will arrest Netanyahu if the Jewish leader entered the city under his tenure. The guy's full of smoke. In recent months, there have been irresponsible and frankly absurd statements made by Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani, who has campaigned on the promise of arresting you upon setting foot in our city. Vernikov, who is Jewish, wrote in her letter to Netanyahu, "Whether individuals agree or disagree with your policies, you are the duly elected prime minister of the state of Israel, a democratic nation that stands as a beacon of hope, freedom, Western values, resilience, and strength in a region surrounded by tyranny and terror." And so she wants him to come, and I wish he would. Put that little weasel in his place. Yeah. Times of Israel. U.S. intel revealed Israeli officials discussing use of human shields in Gaza, sources say. Israeli military using Gazans as human shields. Okay, that is against international law, right? Okay, so here's what it says, and this is why I highlighted it. Report by Reuters says Israelis discussed soldiers sending Palestinians into tunnels potentially lined with explosives. Here's why I read it. IDF says practice is prohibited and it is investigating. When the Muslims do this with Jews, nobody says a thing. It never makes any news. Nobody ever complains. The UN ignores it. But when Israel does something which is prohibited, both in international law, in their own law, they investigate. And if they find that this is true, they will put those people in prison or demote them or whatever they feel is appropriate. Because this is Israel. It's not the surrounding nations. But people don't seem to get that. It's always against Israel. From the Times of Israel. Israel grilled at UN over reports claiming systematic and widespread torture of Palestinians. What about the Palestinians' widespread torture of Israelis, which they have documented proof of it, right on their own cameras that they took pictures of their own hostages showing how beaten up they were, how raped the women were. Nobody says anything. It's a total double standard. The post-millennial Fetterman says being devoted to Israel is nearly incompatible with being a proud Democrat. He's absolutely right. I don't know why the guy stays in the party other than maybe to continue to get elected because they're all lefties in his area or I don't know what. Anyway, Breitbart, Bolivia restores ties with Israel after defeated socialists embraced Iran. So the socialists were in power. They got defeated. America is saying, well, we need to try socialism. When every single place on the planet where it has been tried, it has failed. And we just can't seem to learn from the rest of the world. We got to just say, well, maybe this time it'll work. And assuredly, it will not. Got some news from Christianity, from Ministry Watch. Now, whether you agree with artificial intelligence or not, you participate in artificial intelligence every single day of your life. If you do a search on Google, you will be participating in AI. If you get a telephone call or call a business, it's probably got AI behind it. Everything now is involved in AI. I did something yesterday that I've never done in my life, ever. I don't know how to write computer programs. I couldn't tell you anything about computer programs, nothing. My friend takes care of me, Sergio. I need something to resize photos. He makes a program and does it. Well, I didn't want to bother him. So I went to one of the AI things and I said, how do I write a program to convert all images to JPEG? Because I need that for when I do the photos on the Prophecy Update. So this is benefiting the people that watch Prophecy Update. Okay. And it didn't say, well, let me tell you how to do it. It just did it. It gave me all the information, did it for me. And so now I can change all of the photos instead of manually every week, which won't go into the editor that I have. It just did it. And so I now have a program in my computer that it wrote. And all I had to do, it told me, now take this program that I wrote you, put it into, and I've never been to Terminal in my life. Terminal is where they write their codes in your computer. It said, click this and this, Terminal will come up and paste that in and boop, and now that easy. So if you want to write a code for anything, it'll do it for you. Okay, it's very handy. Those are the kind of things that AI makes life very easy. You no longer have to go to a person to fix your computer if it's got a virus. All you need to do is say, hey, I got this virus and I need to get it out, and it'll tell you what to do. So if you use it wisely, it is excellent. If you use it wrong, like somebody sent me one about people texting with AI Jesus, right? It's just an AI talking. You say, I'm Jesus, right? That is crazy. If you're doing that, you are crazy. Okay, that's all there is to it. It's just a crazy thing. That's not Jesus. That's just a computer, and you can get a computer to be anybody. You want it to be George Bush, it'll be George Bush, right? That's just nuts. So use what you have wisely, and if you go order something at a fast food place, you drive through, chances are AI is being involved in your order right now, okay? So this is the world we live in, and there's nothing we can do about it. And as I've said, this is a real double-edged sword, because if we don't develop AI, the rest of the world will be way beyond us. They will be writing codes while we're still doing it manually, and they can do in 1 second what it takes us 10 hours to do. Okay, so that's one of the things. Another thing is, so you've got the good, and we will be left out if we don't pursue AI. The inevitable result of AI is the destruction of the world. Okay, so there's nothing we can do about it. We are in a loop that the Bible prophesied thousands of years ago, and there's nothing we can do about it. The book is written, the words are there, it says what's coming on the world, and I absolutely assure you that the things that are in Revelation and spoken by Jesus, for example, in Matthew 24, are because of AI. And another thing on that same issue, the Bible gives information on all of the end times. In the book of Judges, it's given it in the book of Joshua, and it is also giving us that in the book of Samuel. If you want to understand the dispensational model as it's being worked all the way through human history, including what we're talking about right now, watch the sermons from Joshua, Judges, and now on Samuel, and you will see end times events, like in today's sermon, end times events that are relevant, believe it or not, thousands of years ago. God knew these things were coming. So we're just, we're deluding ourselves if we think we can just say, I'm not going to participate in AI. You are, every day of your life. Okay, having said that, because somebody is going to take offense that I'm going to bring the next article up, which to me is the greatest thing it's like me writing my own program yesterday. Okay? Ministry Watch, how artificial intelligence is transforming Bible translation. Now, when I was at Wycliffe years ago, I was going to be a Wycliffe translator over in a little island in the Pacific until my wife said, I just don't want to do this. There was a guy that told us how he developed a program in computers that would take very similar languages that had never been evangelized in any way, shape, or form, and it could read those languages based on the program he had written, which was called Adapt It. It adapts to languages that nobody's even had in writing before, okay? It could listen to these things, and it could adapt and say where the changes in those languages had occurred and backfill that information and translate that language without any information on that language at all. This is years ago. This is like 15, 20 years ago, okay? AI is basically what he was doing manually. And now we have computers that can do this and get all of the languages out very quickly. So here we go. An estimated 3,300 languages in the world don't have their own translation of scriptures. That's criminal. In order to improve the speed and cultural accuracy of Bible translations into more rare languages, Avodah Connect is using AI. Avodah has said they currently have 31 translation teams using their AI process and expect that the number could grow to 50 by the year end. 11 of the teams are halfway through their translations. While a traditional textual translation takes between 20 and 25 years, which is true, they're not stretching that, Avodah believes it can realistically speed that process up to between 4 and 5 years. By next year, it'll be down to 2 and 3 years. Trust me on this. And reduce costs significantly. They could actually do it here in America without even sending people over there if they needed to, or whatever. This will have a huge impact on minority language groups who have been long waiting for a translation of the Bible. The AI tools they use are meant to accelerate the process for Bible translation. But humans will still be involved, especially for quality checks. The goal is to produce faithful, contextualized scripture without diluting the theological message. That is what's important. It's like the bombs we talked about last week that are AI, but they cannot fire unless a human is involved. This is the same type of thing, but with the Bible. The AI model used Avodah clusters texts thematically, then looks for patterns of semantic similarity, which is exactly what Adapted did all those years ago. The AI doesn't replace translators, but because of the limited access to trained linguists, which takes almost a lifetime to be trained in a language. That's why it takes 20 to 25 years. They can now do this by adapting with AI in low-resource languages. They are used more for quality checking and validation. AI is good at pattern recognition, but it doesn't have the wisdom nor contextual understanding. That is why it can never fully replace human consultants who review translations for accuracy and doctrinal fidelity, he explained. Okay, and that's exactly why I do not use AI for sermons, is because there's no way that an AI can do what I do in my sermons. It cannot, and it never will be able to. It will be able to mimic it to some extent, but it will not be able to make the mental leaps that are necessary to understand typology properly. Okay, what it will be able to do is find typology like people have found for the past 2,000 years, where people just say, well, this means this, and that's picturing that, when it has nothing to do with it. There is a process that must be understood in order to find proper biblical theology or typology. In order to be trustworthy, the translation must first reflect the meaning of the original text as it moves into the rare language. The text must be understandable and accessible. A text is appealing if it resonates culturally and spiritually with its readers. If it doesn't, they will have no idea what it's talking about. That's why when we have a Bible translation in English, it doesn't say the mouth of the sword. We say, well, what's the mouth of the sword? Le pi cherev, to the mouth of the sword, right? It doesn't say that. It says the edge of the sword, because culturally we say the edge. But the Hebrew is a more dynamic language, and it uses these, imagery. The sword is like a mouth, and it is devouring the souls of men as it's cutting, okay? So we don't get that. Now, we could if it was trained into us. A lot of our culture is based on the Bible. And the way we think is because of Bible thinking. but it doesn't go all the way across. There are many, many things in the Bible, even in the King James Version, that have nothing to do with what we know here. And so we have to translate that rather than give a cultural, we just can't do it. It wouldn't make sense. We would have to be trained in that first, okay? Finally, the goal is that the translation is appropriate, meaning it sounds like it should. That is where, when you have a Bible translation committee, you don't just translate the Bible and then let it go. It's got to go through a committee that now makes it sound like something we can understand. When I translate the Bible, as you all know, it doesn't make any sense. I have to explain it to you because it is complicated to read directly from the Hebrew and the Greek. And so I give you the meaning of the word, and then would you turn on the air? Because I never turned it on this morning. I forgot all about it, and I see people are hot in here. I give the meaning of the word, and then I also will explain what's going on. So when you hear the translation at the end of the sermon, you'll say, oh, I get that. Otherwise, it wouldn't make any sense to you. So, for example, poetry should read like poetry. Okay, there you go. Mail online. Police officer warns Prince William's vicar friend that Bible verse on his van could be considered hate speech. Now, this is the UK today. Have a Bible verse on your van, and you can be a hater, okay? Pastor Mick Fleming, who is a friend of the Prince and Princess of Wales, by the way, that's something, worked as a drug runner and a debt collector and was once arrested on suspicion of murder. So this wasn't a great guy, and now he's a great guy, right? Because of Jesus, and he wants the world to know it. Now 59, the former gangland criminal enforcer dedicates his life to helping others as a pastor, along with setting up his charity, which was visited by the Prince and Princess of Wales. Earlier this year, Prince and Princess of Wales are William and his wife, whatever her name is, Kate, thank you. They're the heirs apparent to the throne when Charles kicks the bucket. Okay, so Mick released a book which detailed his early life in crime and how he nearly died, and it made him turn his life around, and even had a foreword from Prince William. After recently giving up all of his belongings, Mick now lives in a camper van, which has a Bible verse on it. John 3:16. Hate speech galore there, folks. The verse reads, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only son, that everyone who believes in him should not perish but have everlasting life." Now, the priest has revealed he was approached by a police officer while at a petrol station in Lancashire, who told him the writing could be seen as hate speech in the wrong context. Despite being told he wasn't there to arrest Mick, how gracious of him, the officer said that if someone reported it to the police, they would investigate and he could end up in trouble. John 3:16. Got some news from the Mideast and Africa today, from All Israel. Iran funneled $1 billion to Hezbollah despite sanctions, U.S. senior official warns. They've been bombed out of existence. They don't have any money, and they're giving $1 billion after being bombed out of existence to continue their insane cause. These are people that are highly, not just moderately, they are highly demented, okay? John Hurley revealed that the Islamic Republic of Iran has transferred approximately $1 billion to Hezbollah in Lebanon, despite Western sanctions on Tehran's strained economy. Now, when I say they're demented, I'm not saying that Iranians are. I'm saying the leadership in Iran. That's who I'm speaking of. Because somebody will send me, "You offended me, I'm Iranian." Well, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about your leaders in Iran. Hezbollah is Iran's most powerful terrorist proxy and one of the most influential political and military forces inside Lebanon. Hurley confirmed that the Trump admin's efforts to cut Iranian funding to Hezbollah are intended to help the Lebanese people get their country back. The key to that is to drive out the Iranian influence and control the stats with all the money that they are pumping into Hezbollah. Even with everything Iran has been through, even with the economy not in great shape, they're still pumping a lot of money to their terrorist proxies. Insane thinking. The U.S. and the newly formed Lebanese government have both urged Hezbollah to lay down its arms, but the group has shown no willingness to comply. Lebanese armed forces, already overstretched and under-resourced, allegedly lack the capacity to control or disarm Hezbollah, leaving the organization firmly in control of its arsenal. Israeli officials warn that rather than scaling back, Hezbollah is actively expanding and modernizing its military capabilities. Barak, who had initially expressed hope for the new Lebanese leadership, acknowledged that Lebanon has effectively slipped into failed state status. So there you go. Lebanon is in a world of hurt right now if they don't get this under control. Times of Israel. Alarmed by Hezbollah rearming, Israel presses Beirut to act before the IDF has to. A year after Israel halted its invasion of Lebanon with a highly favorable ceasefire, another IDF operation against Hezbollah looks increasingly inevitable. Under the year-old deal brokered by the U.S. and France, the Iran-backed terror group was to be relieved of its arms and prevented from rebuilding its fighting forces. Instead, as Netanyahu warned in public comments, Hezbollah's continued trying to rearm. Israel would do whatever is necessary to prevent that from happening, he threatened. The IDF has stepped up its airstrikes against Hezbollah in recent weeks, carrying out dozens of attacks and sometimes launching wide sorties. If the Lebanese army does not disarm Hezbollah and fails to meet the demands of the ceasefire, Israel, with U.S. backing, will attack Hezbollah targets across Lebanon, including in Beirut. It's going to be a scary time, but this is the world we live in. They made the agreement. They're not living by it, and somebody has to stop them. The Lebanese government cannot. From World Israel News, fatocide. I don't know if you've ever heard of fatocide, but it's a terrible problem in the world. Israel accused of making Gazans fat. First, there was famine and lies about genocide. Now there's fatocide. The Middle East Eye, a site with Hamas links whose content tends to read like Hamas propaganda, has decided to reveal the latest tale of suffering from the terrorist territories. Rend your clothes and get ready to weep a small stream. They're forcing us to gain weight. The horror, the humanity. According to the propaganda site, Gazans are suffering because the supermarkets have shelves overflowing with chocolate, soft drinks, and cigarettes, and lots of products that are fattening. Now imagine this. They're saying that people are starving, and yet they have supermarkets over there that are overflowing with non-necessities. Well, think of all the necessities that they have. It's unbelievable, and the world believes this nonsense. And most of these goods consist of carbohydrates, sugars, and starches. These include flour and various types of cheese used in sweets and pizza. So they have pizza over there. In addition to sugar and flour derivatives used in confectionery production. It's a pizza genocide and a Zionist conspiracy to cover up the famine. There's now an abnormal increase in people's weights. It appears that the Israeli occupation is trying to conceal the crime of starving Palestinians by creating an opposite image, one of rapid and unnatural weight gain.
Jeez.
It's just...
No brain.
No brain.
Nope.
Nope. All Israel. Hezbollah leaders reportedly have had facial surgery to conceal identities from Israeli intelligence. That's probably smart at this point because they know who these people are, and if they don't get their faces changed, they're done. Okay, Trading View. This is news from Mongolia, from Trading View. Mongolia trade surplus near a 3-year high. Go Mongolia. Mongolia's trade surplus widened significantly to $677.6 million in October 2025 from $428.7 million in the same month last year. They are taking over the world. Daniel 12 Technology. From Futurism. Robotics company builds straight-up Terminator. Chinese automotive company XPeng just released a clip showcasing its iron humanoid robot. The clip shows a robotic exoskeleton strapped to a harness, walking in a straight line. While XPeng's iron units are usually clad in a sleek white skin, this one is totally nude. He looks just like the Terminator, and it looks like something straight out of the post-apocalyptic RPG Fallout, or like the titular antagonists from the Terminator franchise. The bot also cleans up nicely. During an event this week, the company showed it off dressed in a cloth bodysuit that gave it a distinctly feminine profile. Ooh. Iron's gait was so impressive that some observers wondered if it was a human inside of a suit. A con Elon Musk once pulled, but Xpeng CEO He Xiaopeng put that suggestion to rest when he unzipped the outfit showing the robot inside. The bot displayed some pretty slick motion, swaying its hips as it walks. Iron made its first debut when Xpeng CEO He Xiaopeng introduced the unit as the most human-like bot on the market to date. Per Humanoids Daily, they got a production, Humanoids Daily. I guess you can subscribe to it and find out what's going on, whatever. The robot features dexterous hands with 22 degrees of flexibility, a human-like spine, gender options, and a digital face. According to Hay, the bot also contains the first all-solid-state battery in the industry, as opposed to the liquid electrolyte typically found in lithium-ion batteries. Solid-state batteries are considered the holy grail for electric vehicle development. A design choice, he says, will make the robots safer for home use. Get yours today, kids. Okay. Yeah. It's a dangerous world, including the inevitable plagues noted in the book of Revelation. Okay. So we've got Iran that's spending a lot of money in Hezbollah, billions of dollars, when they don't have any money to spend. But Iran's severe water crisis prompts Pezeshkian to raise possibility of evacuating Tehran. I actually saw yesterday another article that says that they are certain they're going to have to evacuate Tehran. If it doesn't rain, we will have to start restricting water supplies in Tehran next month. This was last week, at the end of last week, so it's been a while. If the drought continues, we will run out of water and be forced to evacuate the city. The leader was quoted as saying, Pezeshkian described the situation as extremely critical, citing reports that Tehran's dam reservoirs have fallen to their lowest level in 60 years. The largest water reservoir serving the capital currently holds 14 million cubic meters compared to 86 million at the same time last year. Latian Dam, another key reservoir, is only about 9% full. Latian's water storage is just 9 million cubic meters. Energy Minister Abbas Al-Abadi said we are forced to cut off the water supply for citizens on some evenings so that the reservoirs can refill. The ongoing crisis is giving rise to increasing speculation that further shortages could trigger nationwide protests and social unrest. Now, when you see that they have 14 million cubic meters of water, okay, and they say that's all they have in this dam at this one time, that's not a lot. It sounds like a lot. Ooh, 14 million cubic. The tank right over here, the tower, you see them all over America. The towers where the big bubble on the top. That has 200,000 gallons of water in it right there. That'll be gone in 15 minutes if it needs to be used. It's emergency only, and the reason why they build them up there is because it gives you pressure even when there's no pumps running. So they will say use very sparingly because when this is gone, unless the pump is running, it's all gone. Okay, but that's a couple 100,000 gallons. A normal wastewater plant, I'm talking a small one, will go through 1 million to 200 million gallons a day, okay, depending on its size. So that's just a normal wastewater plant. Houston does about 200 million a day, or it did 20 years ago when I was in the business. So water is something that's very precious. It is not something that you want to be messing with. And Iran, instead of working on their problems, has been funding terrorists, and they've got no water. That's a stupid mentality there. Morality. Gateway Pundit. Anti-white racism. Coca-Cola allegedly rejects highly experienced applicant before he applies again under a fake ethnic name and receives an interview. Yep, a white man named David said he had his application rejected by Coca-Cola the next day, despite having 2 decades worth of related experience. However, an interesting turn of events occurred when David later submitted another application using more black-sounding name and reported significantly fewer years of experience. So he said, well, my name is whatever, and I've got 5 minutes of experience, okay? He then sent another application just changing his name to Deshaun and reduced his work experience to only 5 years. His application under Deshawn was accepted. Then he was given an opportunity to do an interview. And when Deshawn showed up as a white guy, they probably said, well, we got the wrong guy. Please leave. Zero Hedge. BBC finds presenter in violation of network standards for correcting pregnant people reference on air. She's reading and it says pregnant people, and she said, oh, they mean a woman. And she got in trouble for it. There's controversy at the BBC over a correction made by presenter Martine Croxall on air when she changed a reference to pregnant people saying women. The network later received 20 complaints and agreed that Croxall had violated network policies. 20 people, 20 lunatics out there complain, and they are who they cater to. This is typical left thinking around the world. Gateway Pundit, U.S. Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals rules schools cannot force students to use preferred pronouns. Good. Gateway Pundit, Abilene Christian University. Christian University. I would say non-Christian university. Calling abortion murder is hate speech. Gateway Pundit, Georgia police officer under investigation after misgendering a man pretending to be a woman in a public library bathroom confrontation. He says, you're a guy, what are you doing here? And now he's in trouble. Gateway Pundit, Olympic Committee moves to ban all transgender athletes from women's events. Yes, cites scientific evidence of advances to being born male. How can that be? Kamala Harris would disagree.
Yeah.
Mail Online, staggering number of trans and gay TV characters axed under Trump-era rollback of woke initiatives. We no longer have to watch that nonsense on TV because they're getting rid of them. Epic Times, Kazakhstan Parliament. I want to move there. Votes to ban LGBT propaganda. Maybe I can hook into their TV station and start watching Kazakhstan, whatever, serials or whatever. I don't know. I'll learn the language and watch it. Some other news from Fox. China launches third aircraft carrier as Xi pushes military modernization against U.S. influence. The Fujian is China's third aircraft carrier compared with the U.S.'s. Anybody knows how many we have?
7.
More than that. We're close, though. Begins with E and ends with 11. Anybody? Gotcha. Okay. And the first that it designed and produced at home. They're making their own now. It's one of the most significant milestones in President Xi Jinping's. I know it's pronounced Xi Jinping. I don't like saying she, okay? He's a guy. He's not a girl. President Xi Jinping's push to modernize the PLA by 2035. Part of the sweeping, you ought to see what they call me in like Japan, right? It's not Charlie, it's Toddy, and if you say refrigerator, well, they can't do it. Muzukashi ne. Anyway, you want to win a bet in Japan, go up to a Japanese that's never spoken English and ask them to say the word refrigerator. They can't get past the first syllable. They cannot do it. It takes practice, a lot of practice to get down refrigerator. If you use the Pimsleur method, it'll go a little quicker, but even then it's difficult. Okay, so let's see here. Part of sweeping military overhaul aimed at countering U.S. influence in the Indo-Pacific. China's state media said the Fujian will continue sea trials and flight tests before becoming fully combat ready. But its commissioning signals Beijing's growing confidence in operating larger, more complex warships. The 80,000-ton vessel is equipped with electromagnetic catapults. We did that in America, and Trump said these are garbage. They broke down all the time, and he said we're going back to the proper catapults with the hydraulics, and it's got the thing, and it works properly. If they get this to work, they did something we could not master because they never worked. They can launch heavier aircraft, including advanced J-35 stealth fighters. Now, I could be wrong. Maybe we did develop it afterward, but Trump said we need to redo this and stop using these because that's all he got was complaints about the catapult system. Maybe they perfected it after his first term, and I don't know what I'm talking about. So, whatever. Giving it longer range and greater strike capacity than China's two previous carriers, the Liaoning and the Shandong. From TWZ. Strong evidence that China's next carrier will be nuclear. emerges in their shipyard photo. This means that it will be able to stay out at sea for a long time without any need for a fuel ship hanging around at its side. When we made that development, it changed the world. Recent imagery indicates that China is progressing with work on a new aircraft carrier, its fourth, which is expected by many sources to introduce nuclear propulsion. A new detail that is now visible of the makings of the ship's hull structure would appear to directly support this. The development comes just a week after the PLA Navy commissioned its first domestically produced carrier, the Fujian. We talked about that recently, didn't we? Anyway, meanwhile, there are increasing reports that Beijing may also still be working on at least one more conventionally powered carrier, too. Visible now is what looks like a reactor containment structure, which would be a key indicator of its propulsion system. Currently, the structure is broadly similar to that which is found in U.S. nuclear-powered supercarriers, and there is a general consensus that what we can see here is related to the future installation of a nuclear reactor. However, there remains the possibility that this could be some other test ship or potentially a test module. It could also be a case of this feature looking like it exists for one purpose, but it ends up being for another, although that seems less likely. Okay, we'll see where it goes. Investing. U.S. House report accuses China of minerals market interference. It alleges that China's role as the world's largest processor of many critical minerals has made it nearly impossible for the U.S. and allies to determine the true price of certain metals, including rare earths. The report also suggests that the London Metal Exchange, where many minerals are traded, is susceptible to influence from Beijing, as it's owned by the Hong Kong exchanges and clearing. So not only are they keeping these rare earths away from the rest of the world, except as they want to, but they're working on fudging the prices so nobody knows how to price them anyway. Zero Hedge, Chinese-owned trailer park. I mentioned this last week, near U.S. stealth bomber base linked to suspicious Vancouver activity. So we need to watch that. Reuters, Australian spy chief says Chinese hackers are probing telecoms and key facilities. Gateway pundit, Biden endangered the nation by ending a Trump-era program countering Chinese espionage. Chinese espionage in the U.S. has reached alarming levels over the past decade, infiltrating the military, technology, and government sectors, and balloons flying right over, which he didn't do anything about. Between 2021 and 2024, federal authorities recorded more than 60 incidents linked to the CCP, with roughly 80% of all economic espionage prosecutions tied to China. Against this backdrop, Biden's termination of the Trump-era counter-espionage program appears especially misguided. Unless you're a communist yourself and you want them to spy, then it's not misguided at all. During Trump's first term, the U.S. Trade Representative uncovered widespread theft of American intellectual property by China, while the FBI reported thousands of espionage cases linked to Beijing, reportedly 90% of all such cases. At Trump's direction, Robert Lighthizer launched a Section 301 investigation in August 2017 into China's tech transfer and intellectual property practices. After 7 months, a 200-page report released in March 2018 detailed how China used coercive and illegal methods to obtain U.S. technology. The investigation identified 4 major categories of misconduct: forced technology transfers through joint ventures, discriminatory licensing practices, state-directed investments to acquire advanced technologies, and cyber intrusions to steal data. The report estimated China's theft of U.S. intellectual property cost between $225 and $600 billion annually. Trump also noted that a $500 billion trade deficit, with IP theft adding another $300 billion to U.S. losses. That takes you well over $1 trillion, and if it's at the high end, we're at $1.5 trillion being stolen from us every single year. These practices were central to China's Made in China 2025 plan, which aimed to dominate industries such as aerospace, robotics, and advanced materials. China also accounted for 87% of counterfeit goods seized while entering the U.S. A December 2018 DOJ report to the Senate Intelligence Committee found that over 90% of economic espionage cases benefiting a foreign state involved China. And more than two-thirds of trade secret theft cases were linked to it. Deputy Attorney General Rosenstein confirmed the findings, and FBI Director Wray later revealed that by 2020, nearly half of the FBI's 5,000 active counterintelligence cases involved China, with a new case opening every 10 hours. Former NSA Director General Alexander called this the greatest transfer of wealth in history, while Wray described Chinese espionage as the greatest long-term threat to our nation's information and intellectual property. And guess what? Biden canceled the program. From whitehouse.gov. This was a week ago, but it's so wonderful, I thought I'd read it to you. This is President Trump making a proclamation. Anti-Communism Week 2025. By the President of the United States of America, a proclamation. This week, a week ago, our nation observes Anti-Communism Week, a solemn remembrance of the devastation caused by one of history's most destructive ideologies. Across continents and generations, communism has wrought devastation upon nations and souls. More than 100 million lives have been taken by regimes that sought to erase faith, suppress freedom, and destroy prosperity earned through hard work, violating the God-given rights and dignity of those they oppressed. As we honor their memory, we renew our national promise to stand firm against communism, meaning Biden and Obama and the rest of those people, to uphold the cause of liberty and human worth, and to affirm once more that no system of government can ever replace the will and conscience of a free people. For more than a century, communism has brought nothing but ruin. Wherever it spreads, it silences dissent, punishes beliefs, and demands that generations kneel before the power of the state instead of standing for freedom. Its story is written in blood and sorrow, a grim reminder that communism is nothing more than another word for servitude. In the 34 years since the end of the Cold War, the world has witnessed both the triumph of democracy and the persistence of tyranny in new forms. New voices now repeat old lies, cloaking them in the language of social justice. Think of who he's thinking of.
Yes.
And democratic socialism. Yet their message remains the same. He is saying, my predecessors were communists. That's exactly what he's saying. Give up your freedom, place your trust in the power of the government, and trade the promise of prosperity for the empty comfort of control. America rejects this evil doctrine. We remain a nation founded on the eternal truth that liberty and opportunity are the birthrights of every person, and that no ideology, whether foreign or domestic, I love how he pokes these people, can extinguish them. As we mark Anti-Communism Week, we stand united in defense of the values that define us as a free people. We honor the victims of oppression by keeping their cause alive and by ensuring that communism and every system that denies the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness will find their place once and for all on the ash heap of history. Thank you, President Trump. From FLDOE.org, State Board of Education approves new History of Communism standards. Good job. Good job. Florida, DeSantis, the whole lot of them. Good job. Yahoo, Trump finalizes U.S. Gulf oil lease sale. Proposes Alaska sale in 2026. He's approved it. We're going to have more pumping in the Gulf. Don't fret. People say that's bad. More oil seeps out of the ground naturally than we have ever spilled in the Gulf of Mexico. Billions of gallons every 10 years comes out of the ground naturally that is lost. If we pump that out, it will be used and it won't be flowing out and doing what it does. Little fishes and stuff get greasy, whatever. Reuters. Trump administration revokes Biden-era limits on Alaska oil drilling. Good. Breitbart. Speaking of fish, these guys are leaving, so make sure you say goodbye to them. They're heading back up to North Carolina. They've been here for a couple weeks, and he was out on the dock, and he got a giant fish. It was real greasy, wasn't it? Oh, Gulf oil line. It was big, and guess what he did? He said, this is the first, I don't want to say what type because it might not be the right time of year to catch it, and these are dock rules here. So anyway, he gave it to Hideko. He said, this is the first one I caught. Did you catch any more?
No.
Okay, sorry, she ate it. Okay, Reuters, Trump, I read that. Breitbart, Russian oil export revenue down $13 billion since Trump sanctions. Russia, $13 billion down. Amazing. From NBC Philly, U.S. Mint presses final pennies as production ends after more than 230 years. Yes, the pennies are done. Okay, you still find plenty of them down in the projects, but anyway, I know that was a week ago, but I had to include it because it's just one of those things. It's part of an era that, you know what? I saw a post, I think it was on X or somewhere. Andy Rooney, and this is like 30 years ago, did a thing on pennies. He said, "Why don't we get rid of the pennies?" And he did a test, and he put pennies all over New York. And everybody walked on him. Nobody picked them. He'd leave like 10. Nobody would pick them up. It was just, he'd try 3. Nobody picked, and put them at the top of the escalator so nobody would have to bend over. They wouldn't pick them up. And he started putting down like a dime and a quarter. People would stop and pick them up and leave the pennies. He's like, get rid of the pennies. Who said it? China is a sleeping giant. Let her sleep, for when she wakes, she will move the world.
And now?
Nope. His wife said to him when he went out to war, don't get blown apart. Bonaparte? Yes. Okay, I got a Lesric here for you. It could be a Catholic. I'm not sure which. Now, just what do you think about that? The Israelis make starved Gazans fat. For them, what is in store is great foodstuffs galore. Without beepers, they still all go splat. Okay, couple ironies here, and then we'll be done. First one from Breitbart. Now think of who's making this accusation. Letitia James asked court to throw out her mortgage fraud case as selective prosecution. Okay, now you may have seen this. I posted it on the CG report, but I have my own little twist on it from Superior Word News Services. No honking on this bridge anymore. China's honking bridge collapsing months after opening. Yes, no honking on honking anymore. Such is the world in which we live. So from Sarasota, Florida to Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia, I'm Charlie Garrett, and that is your CG report for the week.